Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us again today. And so today we'll be focusing on recursive queries, SQL queries. So basically, we're talking about hierarchical structure within a table. How do we deal with it? There are a couple of ways we can deal with it, but one of the key ways we'll deal with it is using the recursive SQL query. And some of you may be familiar with it, some of you may be new to it. Whichever is the case, we're just going to go over it. So I put in the reference file here where you can quickly just brush through to refresh and understand what this is all about. Okay, so what it does is that it uses a CTE to reference itself. So it handles hierarchical or tree structure data. Okay, and it deals with parent to child relationships. So you should think of cases like org chart, folder trees, or categorical structure, and it uses CTE. And we're going to go over the syntax. But before we do that, when should you think of using recursive queries? Okay, now there are a couple of use cases here. We've listed organizational chart when you are dealing with category, subcategory, and subcategory within a particular table. How do you unravel that, right? Folder structure, department hierarchies, bill of materials, and the list go on and on. All right. So there are other ways we can deal with hierarchy structure within a table, and one way is to use a self join, which we'll talk about in the next session, but sometimes it does has limitation. The recursive allows us to be able to really know at what level the hierarchy is in a particular, because it could go up to 10, it could go up to 2, it could go up to 5, and so that's a limitation of subjoin. We'll talk about that when we get there. So in terms of the structure of recursive, now we have an idea of what we're trying to do. Now let's look at the syntax. Okay, so usually you start it with recursive so that the system can know that you are trying to use a recursive query within your CTE. And now for those that have some programming background, one thing to bear in mind: recursive work very similar to a for loop or a while loop. Okay, but it's in a different content, and it has its similarities and differences, right? But it's kind of, in terms of iteration, multiple iteration, in work in that sense. Okay, now so let's take a look at the query again. So we start with recursive CTE underscore name. You can call it whatever name you want to call your CTE, but then you now have to deal with two different CTE within this particular CTE, right? So one we call the anchor member, basically is a starting point, right? It's the starting point. And then the second, we call it the recursive member. The anchor member runs only once, and it provides the root of the hierarchy. Take, for example, we are looking at employee to the employee structure, right? So the starting point could be the CEO as the head, right? And then you see that structure, the reporting structure, how it looks like. You build it within that context, right? And so that is the anchor member. And then also you then have the recursive member. Basically what it does is it runs this once, and then it references this in this particular recursive member CTE, and then union hall with one iteration, run another iteration, union hall again, run the third one, run the fourth one, and keep going until it satisfies all levels. Okay, so basically it joins the base table to the CTE output, runs repeatedly like I described, and build each next level of the tree. So the final output is a complete hierarchy after all levels have been processed. Okay, I know this is just to give you a background, but when we get to the solution, we'll try and break it down so that you can really understand what we're talking about here. So let's go back to our challenge and try to look at the use case, understand the use case, then we'll move straight to solution. Now, the HR, finance, and business operation need a single hierarchical data set. That's number one. Start from top level leaders, in other words, where the leader ID is null, and recursively expands down to all employees. Now, the second characteristics of this use case is that they annotate each node with leader ID, leader title, meaning the nodes immediate leader at the point of expansion, and then we talk about the employee ID, the job title, and then you want to put them in different levels, starting from 0 up to whatever number. And then there is one interesting thing that we added there, which is the path, right? So basically, you want to structure it just like you have your structure here, right? So that way it's easy for people to see the org chart, right? So you can see here we have VP, director, manager, and then in individual contributor, right? So you want to be able to show that, so, and that is expected in this solution. Now, some of the scenarios that your solution must meet is that the org chart and headcount reporting by level, all right, span of control, director, total report, and managerial depth, sub-tree queries or report under a given leader. You want to be able to display that in your table. Role path analytic, we just talk about that. All right, and your action is just to be able to deliver that certified org hierarchy data set based on the recursive CTE with the following component and guarantees. Now, when you look at this follow component, I'm beginning to add more information because I really want you guys to know it's not just solving the SQL solution that is the end of it. You also in when you begin to take in some of these tasks, you need to be also understand that it has to be in operation. In other words, it has to be able to run repetitively. So sometimes, because we have transactional data that happens every day, right? And some of these data products you are building needs to be able to be updated every day. So you need to design your data such that it's fail proof, right? And the quality would keep on being maintained, right? So here we've identified all the fields that you should keep in mind, and also we also just reiterate what the data contract look like, and then the operationalization. We also mentioned that what you should keep in mind. Now, just to take note, we won't go into these details for this particular exercise, but I just want you guys to know. And also, there are some drawbacks with recursive as well, right? There are cycle defense that you have to keep in mind, orphan detection, tree completeness, and also you need to also keep in mind that with recursive concept, what happens is that it goes on and on until all levels are being addressed, right? So what if you have hierarchy that goes up to 100, right? So it could also impact performance. So those are some of the drawbacks with recursive, but most cases it's not up to that. Most cases usually less than 6 or thereabout. But just to keep in mind, as you become really comfortable in your knowledge of SQL, right? And also we had some enrichment you need to keep in mind. I won't go over that. That's just optional, just for you to know. And then we talk about the delivery, right? So if you want to display this data that probably somebody else will have to use in the Power BI or Tableau, you need to take care. You need to keep in mind and also take into cognizance access provisioning, onboarding workflows. As you grow in this field, those are things that you begin to factor into your design. All right, now that we have gone through all of that, and also you have the ownership and SLAs, but you can feel free to just go through that. We also have the sample data here. All right, so you can see the sample data. I've decided to increase this one so that when you run yours, you can check and be able to confirm whether you're on the right path or not. So that's why I've added about 20 records here just for you to validate. And like I always encourage you guys, I know I don't say it in every video, but feel free to try to pause these videos and try to solve it by yourself, right? And when you do that, you can come back to the solution and see how we solve it and some of the context we put around the solution. So with that, I'm going to stop the part one here, and I will see you in the real solution. So after this, we'll go back to the solution and then we'll solve this step by step, and also we'll break down the recursive concept in a way that it can be easily understood. Um, I know you guys are excited like I am, and so thank you and give it a shot, and I will see you in the next session.